My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be L.M. Montgomery Video 6, The Simultaneous Public and Private Voice. So here is my novel, L.M. Montgomery, I Gave You Life, a novel by John Passfield, a photo of L.M. Montgomery, the historical person, about 1938, which is the setting, the time setting of my novel. In 1938, with another world war looming and her own personal problems threatening to overwhelm her, acclaimed Canadian author L.M. Montgomery begins to write what she has decided will be her final Anne novel. As she works on the new book, she recalls the days when Anne of Green Gables became a worldwide literary phenomenon and the dilemma that she faced at that time, whether to write a series of novels in which Anne would perpetually remain the child the world had come to know and love, or to allow Anne to grow to adulthood with all the agonizing torments of the one who has given her life, L.M. Montgomery. Okay, so 3 novels then. My novel, L.M. Montgomery, I Gave You Life, in which L.M. Montgomery is a character. She is a character who is remembering the days when she wrote the first Anne novel, Anne of Green Gables. Anne was considered to be a very delightful, cheerful, charming child. Now, Anne had problems, but the point is the problems were solved in the book. Okay, so having written that, she was given a contract to write more Anne novels, and at that time, she had a dilemma. Would she keep Anne as this cheerful, happy child whose problems tended to be solved for her, solved by the author of the book, or write a series of novels in which Anne would grow to adulthood? And in 1938, having done so, having written 7 Anne novels, and starting to write the 8th Anne novel, Anne of Ingleside, L.M. Montgomery, the character in my book, thinks back to the days when she had that choice. Should I keep Anne as a child through 7, 8, she didn't know how many novels at the time, or should I have Anne grow gradually into adulthood, a normal adulthood? Well, L.M. Montgomery didn't see her own life as normal. She saw it as quite agonizing, as you'll see as I read some of the passages, or as you would see if you purchased the book and read it. In an earlier video, I read an image arc of the public voice of L.M. Montgomery. It was presented as an interview, which she either gave at this stage of her life when she was finishing the last novel in which Anne of Green Gables would be a character, or which she imagined as a typical interview that she would give at that stage of her life. Now, in a second video presentation, I read an image arc in the private voice of L.M. Montgomery, in which she summarizes many of the thoughts which she has had about the people and situations of her life which she has never made public, but which she concludes in her mind, as we overhear her, she will one day make public, having her son Stuart publish her journals, the journals in which she has recorded her darkest thoughts for over 50 years. In this video presentation, I'm going to read chapter 15 as it's printed in my novel, which means that I'm going to read the 2 image arcs, the public voice and the private voice of L.M. Montgomery, as they are interlayered in the mind of the main character. So I read public only in one video presentation. I read private only thoughts in the other video presentation, but in her mind, and therefore in this novel, these thoughts interlayer, they interact, they are imagery in her mind that are interactive. There's electricity going back and forth between private thought and public thought. So there's no labels in chapter 15, page 117, but I'm going to say private and public each time I read a passage just to make things clear. But had you read the first 14 chapters, it would be clear. Okay. First private thought. My mother died when I was less than 2. My father left me to go and live in the West. Name me one orphan who felt that she was loved. The world has given me fame. They believe that I'm Anne. They believe that the 2 of us live in Avonlea. Okay, now a public thought, something she would say out loud. Oh, that's a very good question. Well, let me see. What is my life at this moment in time? Well, I'm currently working on a new novel. It is set in my old haunts in PEI. Yes, Anne is what you might call the protagonist. She is what is called my bread and butter in the trade. Though I think there's a time limit on everything. Don't you agree? Whether on butter or on bread or on milk, there's a time when they become dangerous to eat or to drink. Okay, that was a public thought. Here's a private thought. Oh, you generation of vipers, free to speak while I could not. Every parasite, every gossip, every assassin of character, all of the venom of a rabid quilting bee. I spent all those years in agony. I was crucified in the dark, the target of every axe and spear, covered with honey, covered with ants. I spent those years being tortured while tied to a tree. And now the public voice, the things she would say out loud. What is the state of my life at this time? Well, I was a minister's wife, of course. I was such for many, many years at Leaksdale and at Zephyr and then at Norval as well. We're retired now, my husband and I. We no longer have the burden of a charge. Of course, which allows us to have our pleasant memories, and we do go back and visit from time to time. Okay, that was the second segment of the two interacting, private and public. Here's the third private thought. Oh, Ewan, I feel revulsion at even the thought of your touch. You were young and handsome and carried yourself so well, but look at what you have become. An empty hulk, a rotting shell, a stinking skeleton on the beach. You're tormented, crazed, alone. Oh, I'm afraid that what has happened to you is gradually, very gradually, happening to me. Except that I can walk and talk as you cannot. My worst nightmare is that I am slowly becoming you. Now, her third public thought, the thing she would say in public. As to my health, I simply take it day to day. I am not as young as I was, nor is anyone else. Perhaps it's the curse of the writer. You simply get used to sleepless nights. I'm still capable of working for very long hours. I write and I garden. I try to balance out my day. Sometimes I just sit at the window with a cup of tea. Yes, I let my mind drift back to PEI. Okay. Then we go on to the fourth segment of the two interacting, public and private, in her mind. Sparks are flying between them. Private. I despise my own son. Yes, Chester, I do. The upside down and inside out of everything I hoped you would be. I carried you inside me. You lurk inside me still. You are the curse that I have loosed upon the world. Where's your wife? Where are your children? Where do you slither in the depths of the night? Woe to me that I have been a mother to you. And the fourth public thought, the thought that she would utter in public. Oh, I have readers all over the world, readers in Denmark and Japan. I have been translated into Dutch and German and French. I get letters almost every day in the mail. Anne is a little girl to these people, as alive as are you and me. They ride along with her in the buggy, look through her eyes at the white way of delight. They all hope to be adopted, yes. They all feel like orphans in some strange way. The fifth segment of private and public thought. Private first. I practice my smile as the children line up at the zoo. When are you going to write a better book than Anne of Green Gables? An Anne without any problems, an Anne without any strife. I have strife and problems enough in my daily world. Well, when you write another young Anne, why does Anne have to grow old? We liked it better when you and Anne were in Avonlea. And then a public thought. Yes, I attend the meetings of the Literary Association. It makes for a pleasant evening of literary chat. Of course, we don't all write the same kinds of novels. Some are very different from the kind that pay my bills. But how can writers be compared? I never talk of readers or sales. I never mention that I have readers around the world, that I get letters from people who say I have changed their lives. Readers who say that I transport them to PEI. Okay, that was the 5th segment. Here's the 6th. Again, private first. Utter terror at the world. Utter revulsion at what it is and what I am. 2 world wars, millions of dead, and another one on the way. I'm a disciple of King Lear. If the world is not perfect, I do not want to live in it. If I am not perfect, I do not want to live in the world. I wrote a novel in which I tried to escape from both. We are all in a house in the middle of the night, and the black water is rising through the floorboards. What does it matter whether any of us know how to swim? And then public. Oh, the park in PEI. Yes, of course. It's called the Green Gables Park, on land that the government set aside. Of course, there was never an actual house, not an actual Green Gables house. I put several houses together in the book. People forget that Anne is fiction, though all the places are real. You can drink from the Dryad's bubble, just like Anne. No, I don't go back too often. I'm in the Toronto orbit now. They don't make me pay for a ticket when I do. Okay, the 7th segment of first private and then public thought. Okay, private. And my Anne. Oh, my Anne. Oh, I hope that you are not me. But you have followed me around to Leaksdale, to Norval, to Swansea. I see you lingering in the neighborhood when I go out for a walk. You have knocked on my door and asked to live in my house. Oh, Anne, oh, precious Anne, I hope you are not me, as I am not you. And then public, the things she's willing to say in public. Oh, of course you can ask about my family. My husband is now retired. We were partners for many years. Both of us hitched up to the church as to a plow. Oh, no, my writing is strictly my own. I have no partner there. He has the respect of his former parishioners. He preaches on special occasions now. Yes, his health is of some concern, but is under control. A quiet life is what's best for my husband now. Yes, my oldest son is named Chester. At present, Chester is studying law. He has a wife and children. No, he has no plans to write, though he has done some acting and amateur presentations at church. In that he resembles me. In his interest in the arts, there are traits in which he resembles my husband as well. Stuart is the youngest and second son. He has no attachments as yet. He's too young to think of marriage. He is attending university. Medicine seems to be his forte. Stuart is quite devoted to athletics. He's very successful at what he does. One more young person starting out on the road of life. And then the last segment in which we hear the private and the public voices of L.M. Montgomery. Private first. It's in all my journals. I have recorded my darkest thoughts for 50 years. I've asked my son Stuart to publish them, every thought and every word. Thoughts about Ewan, thoughts about Chester, thoughts about relatives, neighbors, friends, thoughts about fame and writing books, and yes, thoughts about Anne. I made Stuart promise me, hand on heart and eye to eye. Not a word must you soften, not a word must you omit. Publish these journals when I am dead. I want everyone to know just who I am. And then the last public thought, the last thought that she would make public. Well, I live a life of routine. I work quite hard at what I do. I'm hoping to finish Anne of Ingleside soon. When I complete it, I'll take a break. Library, movies, reading books. Ones I haven't written, that is. Tending the garden in the summer, in the winter, hot toddy and a warm, cozy fire. I'm starting to realize that I'm getting a little older. Yes, I'm starting to feel my age. I don't travel as much as I used to. I have no plans to go back to the island anytime soon. Well, that's chapter 15 as it's printed with the public and the private voices interaction. As I say, there's electricity going back and forth between those two image arcs. Okay, each is an image arc, private image arc, public image arc, but these sparks are flying between the two. That is how we humans think. Now, in the last number of years, it's become quite common for people in our society to label themselves as survivors. The premise, I assume, is that these people have lived through a situation in which they've been mistreated by other people rather than by themselves, and that this mistreatment by others has denied these people, these self-styled survivors, the ability to be their own best selves in the situations in which they found themselves living. It's also a standard premise of this phenomenon that the people who are survivors find it therapeutic to tell their stories out loud and in public. Another aspect of this phenomenon is to name the people or the group who have denied the survivors their opportunity to become their own best selves. And yet a further aspect of this phenomenon is that the people who have denied them their opportunity to become their own best selves should make a public confession of their guilt. Or if the people who committed the original transgression are now dead, then there should be people who will act as stand-ins for these dead transgressors and who will make a public confession of guilt and offer a public apology and who will make for the transgression. Sorry, a little slip there. So I'll read that last sentence again. There should be people who will act as stand-ins for these dead transgressors and who will make a public confession of guilt and offer a public apology for the transgression. People who self-style themselves survivors claim that only if this process takes place publicly will healing be able to occur. Now, there's more than one way to survive unpleasant, terrible, even soul-destroying events in one's life. One way is to make one's suffering public, as these public survivors do. Another way is to keep one's suffering private, as many people do. What the two percentages are in current society is unknowable, of course. Of these two ways of dealing with personal trauma, one can wonder on reading this novel whether the main character's response to her life is the best that she could make. Surely the task of every human is to assess one's life accurately, putting the blame in the right places, and then to choose the best method of responding to the disappointments of one's life. If the method that she is choosing is the best for her, then we could label this novel as a classical comedy, one of survival, of reflection, and of healing. But if the methods that she chooses is not the best for her, then we could label this novel as a classical tragedy, one of a potentially valuable life, wasted and distorted, the story of one's best self having been denied not only by others, but by oneself. However, what we have here is a combination of these two ways of dealing with trauma. The main character of this novel, L.M. Montgomery, keeps all of her bitterness about the life that she's been forced to live, assuming that she blames others than herself, private during her lifetime. However, we understand, as we overhear her thoughts, that she has recorded all her bitterness in a journal for the last 50 years, and she's decided that she will have her son Stuart make all of her bitterness public after her death by publishing that journal. Now, as readers, we can see the imagery by which L.M. Montgomery is thinking. What we cannot see are her thoughts about that imagery. As a reader, I can only wonder whether the way she is currently choosing will, in the long run, have been best for her. So, she's chosen a mixture of two methods of dealing with trauma. Is it working? Is the question as you read the novel. Okay, this is my novel, L. Montgomery, I Gave You Life. It's found on Amazon, where there's more information. It's found on my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com, or CKSPRESSMILLS.com, where there's more information. On my website, johnpassfield.ca, JOHNPASSFIELD.ca, there's 2 free books, which I wrote and which I'm making public for free access. The planning notebook, which I planned and wrote the novel, and the journal in which I reflect on not only on the novel that I've just written, but on novels in general, and on life in general, and on the way we kind of deal with these traumatic episodes in our lives. So if you're interested in any of these topics, have a look at those 2 free books. Lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.